Hello everyone, welcome to Network Configuration Manager free training session part 2. In today's session, we'll be learning about config-lets, compliance, rule-based access control, and reports feature. So before we start up with the training session for today, let me give you an overview about the topics which we are going to discuss today. So first, we'll be discussing about the config-lets feature and their uses, and followed by that, we'll be discussing about the compliance feature, and then we'll be discussing about role-based access control, and followed by that we'll be discussing about schedule and report feature. So at last we'll be discussing about the various integrations which are supported by Network Configuration Manager too. So during this training session, if you have any questions, you can post it on the chat. We have our panelist, Mr. Varun from our technical team, who will be able to answer all your questions and queries. So moving on to the first topic for today's training session, which is configlets. So what are configlets and their uses? So having a large number of network devices, it will be difficult to perform a configuration change by logging to each device individually, as it requires more time to get completed. So with the help of this configlets feature, we can create a executable command script based on the command sequence to be executed on the device CLI, and that configlet script can be executed simultaneously on multiple networking devices to perform the configuration change. So the configlets are mainly used for troubleshooting the faulty devices and fixing it remotely by executing the commands, and also pushing any new configurations or performing any configuration changes on multiple network devices. So now consider, for example, a scenario where a user needs to configure SNMP version 3 for a certain number of network devices. So in this scenario, the user cannot be logging to each networking device via SSH or Telnet to do the configuration, as it will be a hectic process if there is a large number of network devices. So consider you have a networking environment which has more than 50 or 100 networking devices, then it will be a difficult process to execute the command scripts. So with the having this configlets feature, you can perform this SNMP v3 configuration by performing a single click. Thus, it can save a lot of your time and manual work. So we'll discuss in the upcoming session how to add the configlets and the various execution modes in configlet script. So moving on, we'll see about the different execution methods which we have in configlets. So we have script execution mode, and then we have advanced script execution mode, and then we have file transfer mode. So in the upcoming slides, we will discuss in detail about each configlet mode one by one. So first we'll see about the script execution mode. So in this mode, the given commands are executed in a sequential manner for the devices in which it has to be executed on. So we can make use of this script execution mode to do some simple operations such as enabling or disabling SNMP on multiple networking devices, or configuring interface bandwidth, or configuring IP address on multiple networking devices. To do some simple operations, we can make use of this script execution mode. So moving on, I will show you a sample of a script execution mode. So here on the left hand side, we have the command sequence executed on a networking device in Putty. And on the right hand side, we have the screenshot of the configlet content to be provided in NCM for this command sequence. So let me show you how it has to be created in our Network Configuration Manager GUI. So let me switch over to Network Configuration Manager GUI. So here, uh, if you go to config automation, we have configlets. So in Network Configuration Manager, we have two types of configlets. One is the CLA configlets, and the another one is the REST configlets. So these REST configlets are recently added to Network Configuration Manager tool, and we are providing this REST configlet support for few device vendors like Arista, Palo Alto, FortiGate. For certain device vendors, we have this REST configlets provided with the support, and we are planning to expand it to other device vendors also. So we'll first focus on the CLA configlets. We'll see how to create up a configlet script from the scratch from this particular CLA configlets window. So once you click over this plus icon at the top right corner, you will be able to create up a new configlet script. So here, first you have to provide the configlet script name. and then NCM will ask you to select the execution mode. So as I said earlier, we have three execution modes in config. So we have script execution mode, and then we have advanced script execution mode, and then we have file transfer mode. So first we will see about the script execution mode. So once you have selected the execution mode as per the requirement which you have, and then you can select the device vendor. So the script which you're going to create, it can be made available only to certain device vendors. So consider if you're going to script which has to be executed only on Cisco devices, then you can choose the vendor as Cisco. So that this particular config script which we are creating, it will be available only for the Cisco device vendors. And then you have to provide the description. So you can provide a short description about what is that config, like what it will be performing on your networking device. Just for your reference, you can provide the description. Once you have provided it, then you can provide the config content. So based on the command sequence to be executed on your device CLI, you can provide the config content, and then you can just click over save so that the config will get created, and then it will be displayed over here. So now let me show you example for script execution mode. So consider this particular config script. Enable SNMP V1 or V2 over the Cisco device. So this is a predefined config script which will be available in Network Configuration Manager. So once you click over this particular config script, you will be able to get a detailed information. So here we have provided the config name, and we have chosen the execution mode as script execution mode. Since it is specifically designed for Cisco, we have chosen the device vendor as Cisco. And then we have provided a description. So a short description about the config script. And then post that we have provided the config content. So based on the command which has to be executed on the device CLI, we have provided this command sequence. So when you execute this config script, NCM will try to connect your device CLI, and then it will execute this command sequence. So now let me show you by executing this config script. So if you want to execute this particular config script, you can just click over execute by selecting it. So at the time of executing the config script, NCM will ask you to provide these values. So the read community and the read write community. So you have this has been declared as variable. So at the time of execution, you have to provide the values for it. So if you are using a unique value for all your networking devices, you can just provide the appropriate value and you can execute it. Suppose if in case if you have a different value which has to be provided on different networking devices, then you can use this option, a different value for each device. So here you have to save your device details along with the value which you are going to provide in this specific format, the resource comma the value which you are going to provide. So the resource here, it denotes the IP address of the device. So once you save the details in a text file format, you can upload that text file using this method, and you can have a preview also. So once you have uploaded it, you can just have a preview and you can check for which device what is the value going to be updated by NCM. So like that, you can just have a preview, and then you have to click over execute. So once you click over execute, the command sequence which I showcased to earlier will get executed. So this is a manual method of executing the config scripts. Whereas we do have an option to schedule this operation also. So consider if you want to perform this activity during your non-business hours automatically by NCM, then you can just click over schedule over here, and you have to do the same process like providing the variable values and then selecting the devices for which you would like to execute the script. So once you have performed this basic operation, we will ask you to provide the email address. So the reason why we ask you to provide the email address is to notify you about the config schedule status. So at the end of the config schedule, it will be provided with a report with the information about how many devices has been scheduled for config execution, in which how many of them got executed successfully and then how many of them got failed. So all those details will be sent to you as an email. So that is the reason we ask you to provide the email address. Once you have provided the email address, you can configure the schedule when it has to be executed, whether it has to be executed only once or on a monthly basis. So as per the schedule configuration which you are performing over here, the commands will get executed by NCM, and at the end you will be getting the status of it also as a report. So now moving back to the presentation. So we'll see the next execution mode which we have in config. So moving on, we have the advanced script execution mode. So here there might be some conditions where the prompt gets changed on the device CLI after executing a command, or when there is a user confirmation like yes or no to be provided. So after executing a particular command, the device will prompt you to choose yes or no. So on that conditions, and then we have some stop commands to be provided. So while executing command, we have to stop for some time, and you have to check if any error occurs, or there should be any timeout value to be provided. So after executing a particular command, there should be a time delay, or NCM has to wait for the command to get executed completely. So in these cases, we can make use of this advanced script execution mode. So these all challenges can be overcome with the help of this advanced script execution mode. So let me show you an example for advanced script execution mode. So in this example, on the left-hand side, we have the screenshot of the command sequence executed on the putty to perform the image file transfer. Whereas on the right-hand side, we have the screenshot of the configured content to be provided under advanced script execution mode in Network Configuration Manager. So here, we are just copying the image file using the command copy flash on a Cisco switch. So it has a series of questions, like you have to provide the IP address, followed by that you have to provide the image file name, and there should be a time delay. So these challenges can be overcome with the help of this advanced script execution mode. So let me show you on the GUI how this advanced script execution mode works. Going back to the GUI. So consider this particular example, Catalyst 2900 backup image. So this configured script, it is used for taking the backup of the iOS image from the Cisco device. So once you click over this particular configured script, you will be able to view the command sequence used. So here, NCM will connect your Cisco device and it will execute this command sequence. Copy flash the image file name, which has been on the device, and followed by that, it will execute the TFTP command, and then it will provide the TFTP server IP address and then the destination file name. So if you want to execute this configured script in order to back up the image file of your Cisco device, you can just click over execute over here. So here NCM will ask you to provide certain details like image file name. So the image file which is being used on your networking device, you can provide that file name over here. And then the TFTP server, you can provide the NCM installed server IP address. So in Network Configuration Manager, we have our own inbuilt TFTP server, which is running at the background. So here you can provide the NCM installed server IP address, and followed by that, you can provide the destination file name. So once you have provided all these required values, you can select the devices. So on which specific device you have to execute this command script with. So once you have selected the devices, you can just click over execute. Also here, we do have an option to perform the backup also. So consider if you want any particular operation to be executed on your networking device, you can make sure that a backup is being taken before the operation and after the operation as well. So just by clicking over perform configuration backup before and after template execution, NCM will make sure that backup has been taken before performing any changes and after the changes. So this is about the advanced script execution mode. So moving on, we'll see the last execution mode, which is the file transfer mode. So in this file transfer mode, the entire configuration, both the startup as well as for the running configuration, or both the configurations can be pushed to selected network devices. Also here, you can copy the entire configuration of a device and paste it on the configuration content and make it executed on a device via this method. So let me show you on the GUI how we can make use of this file transfer mode to copy the entire configuration. Now going back to the GUI, let me go to inventory to copy a configuration content of a particular device. So let us take this particular device, 71112, so which is a Cisco router. So now consider a scenario that I want to copy the current version of this particular Cisco router to another networking device. So I'm just clicking over that particular version to copy the content back up. I'm just copying it now. So now we can go to config automation, config. See like config, and you have to provide the config name, and then you have to choose the execution mode as file transfer mode. So now in the config content, you can paste that configuration which has been copied over the previous device which I showed you. So now once you have copied the configured content, you can just click over save so that the configured will get created, and then you can either execute that configured or schedule that configured. So this is how you can copy the configuration content of a particular networking device and you can move it to the another networking device with the help of this file transfer mode. So now moving on, we'll see the next topic of today, which is the compliance feature. So why do we need compliance? How it can be used to safeguard your device configuration? So with having large number of devices, it is always recommended to review the device configuration on a regular interval and to check whether the configurations are created as per the standards. So checking this manually will be a difficult process and it requires lots of human effort and it takes time to get completed. So with the help of this compliance feature in Network Configuration Manager, we can check whether the device configuration is created as per the organizational or industry standards. So moving on, we'll see why compliance and what are the default compliance policies available in Network Configuration Manager. So as we discussed earlier, compliance will help you to review the device configuration. Thus, by performing it, we can avoid any loopholes or vulnerabilities in the device configuration. Also, it will help you to avoid any legal consequences also. So in NCM, we have default policies to check on the compliance of your networking devices. So we have a Cisco iOS policy, and then we have HIPAA policy, and then we have SOX and PCI policy. So these are the default compliance policies which are available over the Network Configuration Manager tool. So moving on, we'll see about creating custom policy in Network Configuration Manager. So for creating a customized compliance policy, you have to create custom rules first. So once you have created the compliance rules, customized compliance rules, you have to group those rules together and those rule groups are associated to the policies. So after the policies are created and associated to your networking devices, NCM will perform a check against the device configuration with those policies and will trigger a violation if it doesn't match the criteria which has been set. So moving on, we'll see about there are two ways to create the custom rules. So we can clone an existing compliance rule to create a new one, or we can add a new customized compliance rule. So these are the two ways to create a customized compliance rule. And there are three criteria to add a compliance rule. So they are simple criteria, and then we have advanced criteria, and then we have advanced custom criteria. So on the right hand side, you might have noticed the three criteria which is being displayed over. And we will discuss in detail about all these three criteria in compliance in the upcoming slides. So in the upcoming slide, we will be seeing the first criteria, which is the simple criteria. So here we can create simple rules by defining the following conditions. Whether the configuration content provided in NCM, it should be contained on the device or it should not be contained on the device, or it should be on the exact set. So like that, you can specify the condition over here. Also here you can set the number of times the specific content to be present on the device configuration. So let me show you on the GUI how a simple criteria can be set and how it performs the check on the device configuration. Now going back to the GUI. Once you click over the compliance tab, you will be able to view the three tabs over here, which is policies, rule groups, and rules. So as I said earlier, first we have to create the customized compliance rules and we have to group the rules together and those rule groups are mapped to a policy. So in order to create your policy, first you have to go to uh, rules and you have to create the customized compliance rules and then you have to group it together with the help of the rule groups. You will be able to create your own policy. So considering the topic which we are going to discuss now, which is the simple criteria. So let me show you an example over here. Consider this particular compliance rule, no console logging. So here we are going to check whether the console logging has been enabled on your device or not. So for this condition, what NCM will be doing is NCM will be reviewing your device configuration for this particular line. So if this particular line is present on the device configuration, then NCM will consider that particular device as a compliance one. Suppose if this line is missing over the device configuration, then NCM will consider that particular device as a violated or a non-compliance device. So as I said earlier, we have three methods here. So we have chosen this particular rule as a simple criteria, and then we have set the condition. So here, as per the requirement which you have, you can specify the condition, whether it should be contained or it should not be contained, or it should be on the exact set. So like that, you can specify the condition over here, and then you can choose the number of times. So how many times this particular line can be present on the device configuration. So if you have chosen the number of times as one, so if this particular line is present more than one time, it will get violated. So like that, you can specify the condition over here. And once you click over next, you can set the rule name and you can provide a short description. So what is that particular compliance rule about? What is going to check on your device configuration? So like that, a small hint can be provided as a description over here. And then NCM will ask you to set the violation severity. So if this particular rule is getting violated, what is the violation severity to be generated in NCM? So whether it should be a major violation, or it should be a warning, or it should be a critical violation. So like that, you can set the severity of the violation to be triggered in NCM. And then here you can configure remediation configured scripts also. So when NCM runs a compliance check and finds out any violation, then we can make use of this remediation configured feature to execute the commands on the device to make it as a compliant one. So let me show you with an example over here. So consider this particular compliance rule, no public community. So here we are going to perform a check on the device configuration, whether that particular line public community has been configured on your device configuration or not. So after checking that, we will be executing this configured script. So under remediation template, we have created a script which can be executed by performing a single click. So once you click over this particular remediation configured script, it will list all the devices in which the script has to be executed. So once you click over execute, the remediation configured script will get executed automatically on the selected devices, and all the devices will be made as a compliant one. So this is about the simple criteria. So moving to the presentation, we'll discuss about the next criteria which we have in compliance, which is the advanced criteria. So here in advanced criteria, you can use any regular expressions along with the conditions such as whether the content should be contained or the content should not be contained, etc. Also here, you can use and or feature to create the compliance rule, using which you can create multiple conditions on a compliance rule. So let me show you an example over the GUI. Going back to the GUI now, under compliances rules. Consider this particular compliance rule, enable secret configured. So this is an example for advanced criteria. So here we are checking this particular string on the device configuration. And then as I said earlier, we can use the under condition. So if you'd like to have another condition which needs to be checked over your device configuration, you can just click over the plus icon, and you can specify whether it should be an uncondition or condition. And then here you can define the condition whether it should be contained or it should not be contained, and you can provide the regular expressions as well. So like this, you can perform a search on IP address or on a particular string. So any content which can be checked over this device configuration with the help of this advanced criteria. So moving on, we'll see about the last criteria in the compliance feature, which is the advanced custom criteria. So it is also known as block-based criteria. So here you can provide the regular expressions along with the conditions such as advanced criteria. And additionally, you can specify the configuration block. in which the compliance check has to be performed. So it will be a mixture of advanced criteria and advanced custom criteria. So now we'll go back to the GUI and I will show you how the advanced custom criteria will be. So consider this particular example. So it has been created up for advanced custom criteria. So here we are declaring a particular configuration block. So in the entire device configuration, we are going to perform a check on this particular block. So the config block, which starts with word interface and which ends with exclamatory mark. So on this particular block, we are going to perform a check for this particular line should contain. So you can make use of this additional block criteria. What is the content which has to be checked on the device configuration, you can provide it over here. So once you have defined these values, you can choose the and or pattern. So as I said earlier, it will be a mixture of advanced criteria and advanced custom criteria. So once you have just created it, you can just click over next. So as we discussed earlier, you have to provide the rule name and the severity of the violation to be triggered, and you can configure the remediation configurates also. So in the drop down, you can choose the configurate script which you have created, and you can just click over save so that the compliance rule will get created and you can perform the check on the device configuration. Moving on, we'll discuss about the compliance reports. So the compliance reports will provide you a detailed information about the devices which are compliant and the devices which are not compliant. Also, it will give you the information about the last compliance check performed on a device being managed in Network Configuration Manager. So let me show you on the GUI how the compliance report will be. Once you go to reports, we have compliance report, a dedicated report for the compliance feature. So as I said earlier, it will give you the information about the devices which has the violations and the devices which doesn't have any violation or compliant devices. So if you would like to have a detailed information, you can just drill down to the violated devices and you can check what are the policies which are validated on that particular networking device. So once you click over any specific policy, it will give you a detailed information about what are the rules which are compliant. So on the right hand side, you will have the rules which are compliant to that particular networking device. And on the left hand side, you will have the rules which got violated. So you can just perform a simple click on the violated rules and you can check what is the line which is missing over the device configuration so that you can perform the changes accordingly to make it as a compliance one. So this detailed information can be generated as a report. So it will be available in a PDF format or you can generate it in a CSV file format also. So just by clicking over export to CSV or export to PDF at the top right. So this is about the compliance feature, Network Configuration Manager. So moving on, we'll discuss about the next topic of this training session, which is role-based access control. So before we proceed with this next session, so if you have any questions or queries so far, you can just raise it on the chat. We will be able to clarify your questions. So what is the role-based access control? So consider in your organization, you have different levels of network engineers to manage your networking devices. And there might be a requirement to not to provide all access to all the level of network engineers. So this can be sorted out with the help of the role-based access control, where you can assign different rules for users, such as administrator role or operator role. And then also you can configure to provide access only to certain devices also. So if in case you are creating up a user account with the operator role, and if that operator user account logs into NCM to perform any changes on the device configuration, then the administrators will be instantly notified. And only if the administrator approves the change, and then it will be performed on the device configuration. So let me show you how this mechanism works, role-based access controller works. So now consider operator user tries to perform a change on the device configuration. So as soon as the operator tries to perform the change on the device configuration, the administrator user will get an instant notification from the operator user. And if that operator approves the change, then the operator user will get notified and the change will be performed. Suppose if that administrator rejects the change, then on that case also the operator user will get notified the reason for why the rejection has been performed. So that details will get forwarded to the operator user. So let me show you on the GUI how we can configure the role-based user network configuration manager. So now we'll go to settings. So here we have user management. To create a new user in network configuration manager, you have to click over add user at the top right. So now we are choosing the role as operator, and we have to provide the operator user account name. We are providing the email address, and you have to type the password. So now once you click over next, as I said earlier, you can provide device specific access also. So consider if this particular operator user should have access to only certain network devices, then you can select specific device and you can just choose those particular networking devices. So let me select few devices over here. And once I click over save, the user account will get created. So now we will log out from this GUI and we will log in back as operator user account. Now I have logged into the NCM GUI with the operator user account, which we have created now. So once I go to inventory and click over devices, I will be able to view only those three devices for which I have provided the access. I will be able to see only those devices. So now consider a scenario that I'm going to perform a change on this particular Cisco router. So we'll go to configlets. We will try to execute a simple script like show version. We'll choose the IP and then we'll click over execute. So now once I click over execute, the request will be sent immediately to the administrator user. So now we'll log out from this particular operator user account and we'll log in back as an administrator now. Now I have logged in back as an administrator user now to this NCM GUI. Now once I click over this bell icon at the top right corner, I will be able to see the user request or the upload request which I have received from the operator user account. So now once I click over this particular request, I will be able to get a detailed information about on which specific device the operator user is going to execute the command. What is the command which is going to be executed? So like that, it will have the detailed information over here. So and then I will be having the options to execute that configured script or approve or reject that configured script. So if I'm going to approve, the operator user will get notification. And even if I reject it, I can provide the commands on why I'm going to reject that configured, and the operator user will get notifications about it instantly. So this is about the role-based access control in Network Configuration Manager. So moving on, we are going to see about the schedule feature in Network Configuration Manager. So NCM provides you the options to schedule the various operations which are being majorly used, such as configuration backup, configure execution, compliance check, report generation, etc. So based on the requirement, you can choose the schedule type and configure to perform the task automatically by the Network Configuration Manager too. So let me show you on the GUI how we can create the schedule and how it will be easy for you to automate the various operations. I'm going back to the GUI. Once you click over config automation, we have the option called schedule. So once you click over schedule, you will be able to find the list of schedules which are created in Network Configuration Manager. In order to create up a new schedule, you can click over the plus icon at the top right corner. So here you have to provide the schedule name, and then under schedule type, you have to select the specific operation which has to be executed automatically by the NCM tool. So consider if you want to take the configuration backup automatically by NCM, then you can choose the schedule type as configuration backup. And then here you can specify the device group. So consider if you want to take for all the devices in NCM, then you can choose all devices group, and then you have to provide the email address. So the reason why we ask you to provide the email address is to notify you about the schedule status. So once you have provided the email address, you can configure the recurrence of the schedule when it has to be executed, whether it has to be executed only once or on a monthly basis. So as per the recurrence schedule which you are creating over here, the backup will be taken. So apart from this configuration backup, we have other operations also which can be scheduled. So we have report generation. So consider if you want a particular report to be fetched from NCM and to be sent to your email address, you can select that particular report so that on the scheduled time, that particular report will be fetched from Network Configuration Manager and will be sent to your email. And then we have compliance check. So as we discussed earlier, a check can be performed on your device configuration with the help of this schedule. So on a regular basis, NCM will do the compliance check and it will share you the compliance report as well at the end of the check. Even the device discovery can be performed with the help of this schedule feature. So here, if you have your networking devices over in a specific IP range, you can just provide the IP range and you can select the appropriate SNMP credential profile so that on the scheduled time, all the networking devices within that particular IP range will get automatically discovered in a network configuration manager too. So this is about the schedule feature in network configuration manager. So moving on to the next topic, we'll discuss about the configuration search feature in Network Configuration Manager. So having a large number of network devices in the network, it will be difficult for a user when required to perform a configuration search across all the devices, as each device might have multiple versions of the backup taken. So with the help of this configuration search feature, you can perform a configuration search to locate a particular string or word on the device configuration. So let me show you on the GUI how we can perform a configuration search. Once you go to inventory and devices, you can click over this magnifying glass at the top right corner to perform a configuration search. So here we have two types of search available. One is the simple search, and the another one we have is the advanced search. So simple search can be used to perform a simple search like searching up a string or a word on the device configuration. And the another one we have is the advanced search. So here we can use the and or condition. So you can provide up a particular word. So like this, you can provide up a particular word and you can just click over this plus icon to add up another condition. And here you can specify and or condition as I said earlier. You can use this condition. And here you can specify the condition, whether the line which should contain or it should not contain or it should start with. So like that, you can specify the condition over here, and you can once you click over search, the results will get displayed over here. So this will help you to perform a quick search on the device configuration across multiple networking devices being managed in Network Configuration Manager tool. So moving on to the next topic, which we have in Network Configuration Manager, which is the exclude criteria feature. So what is the exclude criteria feature? How it can be used in NCM? So with the help of this feature, you can configure NCM to exclude certain lines or content being considered as a change on the device configuration. So consider, for example, we have conditions such as the time details will be included on the device configuration and it will be keep on changing on. So in this scenario, you can create exclude criteria in NCM to ignore the time details being considered as a configuration change. So here in NCM, we have two types of creating exclude criteria. We have line exclude criteria and then we have block exclude criteria. So in line exclude, you can configure to exclude certain lines on the device configuration, such as clock time being considered as a configuration change. Whereas in the block exclude criteria, you can configure to ignore the block of the configurations by providing the start and the end line in the configuration. So let me show you on the GUI how we can create the exclude criteria in NCM. So once you go to config automation, you can click over exclude criteria. So as I said earlier, we have two types of exclude criteria. One is the line exclude and the other one is the block exclude. So let me show you an example for line exclude. So consider this particular example. Cisco 300 series switch. So here we have created up a exclude criteria for Cisco devices being having this condition clock time. So this particular line on the device configuration will be excluded from considering it as a change. So as I said earlier, the time on the device configuration will be keep on changing, and NCM will consider that as a configuration change and it will take a new version of the backup. So to avoid this operation to be performed, we can just create exclude criteria so that NCM will understand that particular line to be ignored from considering it as a change. So this is the example for the line exclude. We'll move on to the block exclude. So here we have an example for Cisco router. So as I said, we have to provide the start line and the end line. So this particular block in the device configuration will be excluded from considering as a change. So like this, you can provide the config block start and config block end over here. And if you want any additional criteria to be excluded, you can just provide the condition over here. So it should contain certain value. You can provide it over here and you can just save that. So NCM will exclude the configurations. So thus by creating this exclude criteria, you can avoid any unnecessary configuration changes being detected by NCM and getting notifications about it. So this is about the exclude criteria feature in Network Configuration Manager. So moving on, we'll discuss about the alarms feature in Network Configuration Manager. So the alarms features are used to notify the user about the important updates, such as configuration changes occurred on the device, or if any failure operation occurred on your networking device. So all this will get as a notification alarm generated in Network Configuration Manager. So these alarms will help you to keep updated about some of the major failures, such as backup failure, change detection, etc. Also, the alarms will get popped up on all the screens of the NCM GUI so that the user can view the alarms instantly whenever it is raised. Let me show you on the GUI on how the alarms will be and how it will get generated. So once you go to Alarms tab, you will be able to see the list of all the active alarms raised in Network Configuration Manager. Here we have the different types of alarms. So we have critical alarm, and then we have trouble, and then we have attention and service down alarm. So we have different categories of alarm which will be getting generated in Network Configuration Manager. And you can view the active alarms over here. And if you go to all alarms, you will have the history of alarms. So once you click over any specific alarm, you will have the history of when it got generated, on which specific operation it got generated. So you will have the history of alarms over this particular alarms window. So moving on to the next topic, which is the show commands. So instead of typing the commands manually by connecting to the device CLI, you can save those commands and can select it to get executed on the device automatically. By performing this, you can save lots of time when you're going to do it on a bulk. So consider you're going to perform a show command on all your networking devices. Then you can just create up that show command with the help of this network configuration manager. You can execute it by performing a single click. So let me show you on the GUI how we can perform this show command execution. Once you go to settings, you can go to device management, and here we have a separate option called show commands. So here it will list all the show commands which are created based on the device vendor. What are the commands which has been created in Network Configuration Manager? You can have an overview. Or if you want to create up a new show command, you can just click over add over here. You can provide the command, name the reference like show version, whatever the name which you would like to provide, you can provide it. And here you have to provide the exact command. So whatever the exact command which has to be executed on your device CLI, you have to provide it on the space of command. And then you have to choose the device vendor. So on which specific device vendor related devices you are going to execute that command with. So once you have selected the appropriate device vendor, you can just click over save. So once you have saved over here, So let me show you where to execute these commands. Once you go to inventory and devices, you will be able to find the list of all the networking devices which are being managed in Network Configuration Manager. So now we'll take this Cisco iOS router. So if you want to perform any show command execution on this particular router, you can just click over actions. And once you click over execute, here you will have the option called show command. So once you select it, you can just select the command which you would like to execute from this drop down. So just by clicking over this particular command, that particular command will get executed on the device CLA and the corresponding output will get generated on the window. So on the content space, it will get generated and you can either execute or you can export it to your device or you can export it to your network configuration manager server also. Once you click over export, it will get downloaded in a text file format. So this is about the show command feature. So up next, we are going to see about the reports feature in Network Configuration Manager. So NCM will provide you different kinds of reports and audits, and it can be used internally by your networking team to track for various purposes. So in this screenshot from the GUI which we have collected, we can see the different categories of report in Network Configuration Manager. And each category has subcategory of reports available. As you can see, under network report, we have hardware inventory report, and then we have firmware inventory report, etc. And under configuration report, we have configuration backup related reports, such as startup running conflict report, configuration changes report, etc. So all these reports can be used for any tracking purposes of your device configuration or the changes being performed on your device configuration. So let me go back to the GUI and show you on real time. So as we saw earlier on the screenshot, you will have all these categories of reports available. So now consider if you would like to fetch the hardware related information about your networking devices, then you can just click over this hardware inventory report so that it will give you the list of networking devices along with the corresponding hardware information. So let me show you. Yeah. So here we have. So like this, a report will get generated for all the devices along with their hardware information. So you will have the information about the IP address and then the series and the model number of your networking device, and then the OS type and the OS version which is being used on your networking device, and then the device type, image file being used on that particular networking device. So along with this, you will have the chassis information also. So what is the serial number and what is the MAC address and then the RAM size, all those details will be getting fetched over this particular report. And this report can be either generated in a PDF file format or it can be exported to CSV or Excel format so that you can make use of this report for auditing purposes. Similarly, we have other reports which are related to hardware of your networking device, like we have firmware inventory report. So here in this report, the devices will be grouped together based on the firmware version, based on the OS type and OS version. The devices will be grouped and you will be able to see the count over here. So totally how many devices are of the same OS type and OS version. And then we have another report type which is configuration report. So here all the reports will be based on the configuration backups being taken by the NCM tool. So here we have startup running conflict report. So in this report you will have the information about the devices which has the startup running conflict issue and the devices without the startup running conflict issue. Similarly, we have configuration changes report. So this will give you the information about the devices which has the configuration changes in it and the devices without the configuration changes. Suppose if any device had a configuration change, you can just click over this particular device and you can check when the changes were performed, who the user who performed the change on the device configuration. So like this, you can keep a track of the configuration changes happened on your networking device with the help of this configuration changes report. So this report also it can be exported to a PDF or CSV file format. So all the reports which are available over the network configuration manager tool, it can be exported in a PDF or CSV file format. So now moving on to the presentation. So the next topic which we are going to discuss is about the dynamic GUI of network configuration manager. So with regards to the dashboard of Network Configuration Manager, we can get a summarized overview of the network devices being managed in NCM along with their current status. So here in dashboard, all the information will be displayed as widgets, and it can be customized as well. So also you can create dynamic device groups based on the device vendor in Network Configuration Manager, and it provides you user specific retainable filters and columns. So let me show you on the real time in the GUI. Once you go to dashboard and click over overview, you will be able to get a summarized view of network configuration manager. So in this dashboard, you will be able to get the entire summary of your networking devices which are being managed and their current status in this network configuration manager tool. So as you can see here on the left hand side, we have the devices summary. So here it will group the devices based on these three details: the device type, vendor, and OS type. So based on these three details, the devices will be grouped together and you will be able to get the count over here. So totally how many devices are being managed in NCM, you can get the count over here. So apart from this devices summary, we have other informations such as backup summary. So it will give you the information about the number of devices in which the configuration backup was successful and the number of devices in which the configuration backup got failed. So you will be able to get the count over here. Apart from that, we have vulnerability summary. So as we discussed during the previous training session about the firmware vulnerability feature. So in NCM, we perform the vulnerability detection. So here you can see the count over here. So how many vulnerabilities are in critical state and then how many vulnerabilities are in important state. So all those details will be available over here. And then you will have the information about the recent changes. So here you will have the information about the device details in which the configuration changes has occurred recently. So like this, you will have the entire summary of your networking device along with their current status over this dashboard in Network Configuration Manager tool. So moving on to the presentation, we'll see about the various integration options available in Network Configuration Manager. So the first integration which we are going to see is with OpManager. So NCM not only support in-house integrations, we do have options to integrate with the third-party tools as well. So first, we'll see about the OpManager integration with NCM tool. So what is OpManager? OpManager is a highly integrative solution that provides you the visibility to monitor your networking devices for their availability and the performance of those networking devices. Suppose if you have OpManager, you can easily integrate it with NCM so that you can perform the device monitoring via OpManager and network device configuration management using this network configuration manager application, which can be used. So both the products can be used on the single GUI. So moving on, the next integration we have is with the NetFlow Analyzer. So NetFlow Analyzer is a bandwidth monitoring and traffic analysis solution. So if you have NFE, it can be easily integrated with NCM. So under the same GUI, we can use both the products. And then we are going to see about some of the other third-party integrations which are supported in Network Configuration Manager, which are Password Manager Pro, Service Desk Plus Cloud, and ServiceNow. So let me explain you each product. So the Password Manager Pro is a credential vault storage. So consider if you have a lot of network devices in your environment, and if the user cannot remember the credentials for each device in the network, then you can make use of this Password Manager Pro. So it will be difficult for you to remember the password for each networking device. So hence you can make use of this Password Manager Pro application to store the credentials of your networking devices. You can store it as a vault and you can make use of it. The next we have is the Service Desk Plus. So whenever there is a configuration backup failure or upload configuration request, which is being triggered from an operator user account, it will be raised as a ticket in Service Desk Plus. So the users can view the alerts as a ticket and can take the action accordingly. And then we have ServiceNow. So ServiceNow is an instant logging software which provides bidirectional data synchronization for device discovery and real-time alert management. So these are some of the third-party integrations which can be performed from NCM. However, we are planning to support the other integrations as well in the upcoming future. So we have reached the end of the training session. So as I said earlier, if you have any questions, you can post it on the chat panel, and we have our panelists available to answer all your questions. So the recorded of this training session will be sent to your email address as earlier as possible. So once we have ended up with this session, we will send it over the email. So if you are an existing customer, you can win a gift card of $25 by simply writing a review about our NCM product in Captera. So thank you for your valuable presence on this training session.